Hey guys, so I was out today walking the dog and I just got back from walking Zoe and I thought about something that was just as clear as day and it came up in my spirit and the statement was the problems that we're seeing in the world today are because people are worshiping God from flesh. I don't think people understand that you cannot worship God from flesh because he is a spirit. And those that worship him do so in spirit and in truth. And so what we've had is that a bunch of people have gone about to build their own churches and they created denominations. So this is all the fighting that we're seeing. It's all infighting on the Christian, everybody's under the title Christian when everybody's not Christian because many of these denominations were made by man and they're carnal. And so they always consult the flesh. How do they feel about the flesh? How do they feel about healing? How do they feel about tongues? How do they feel about miracles? All that stuff is because they're not walking in the spirit. When you walk in the spirit, you do not gratify the lust of the flesh. That means that you see God before you do anything. When you have an authentic born again experience, your flesh is not included. I don't think people really understand that because the fighting and when people argue and I'll look at a thing and I'll know immediately what it is and somebody else won't even see it. It's because they're not walking in the spirit. See, life should be easier for us. It's not easier because many people, like I said, walk in the flesh. They vote against the Bible because they feel a certain way. Feelings are relegated to the realm of the flesh. And that's what happens. They feel a certain way. They have an opinion and they think that the world should be run based on their opinion. When you see these people fighting with the ICE officers and police officers, blocking streets, picketing and everything else, not one of them have actually encountered Christ. If they did, they would have consulted him about the laws of the land or they would know how to conduct themselves. But they don't because they're in the flesh. See, so what we have to do now is we have to understand, and I myself have to understand that everybody is not walking in the spirit. I don't care what you call yourself. I don't care if you call yourself Christian 100 times. If you are not walking in the spirit, you are not. You're just a person that goes to church. And that unfortunately is what's going to happen when people leave this earth. They're going to learn really quickly that they really did not know God, that they did a lot of religious experiences and they went to church and they sang in a choir and they did everything else, but they never got to know God because he is a spirit. See, and that's the sad part. This is why we have people that have titles and that are pastors and ministers and they have churches and they have people under them and they're leading them astray because they're teaching them from the realm of the flesh. And that is a travesty because there's so much more knowledge in the spirit realm. It's so much more revelation. You would be able in the spirit realm to look and see that the president we have now is actually agreeing with God. But because you're looking at the flesh of the man. See, let me tell y'all something that God has done. I have never heard Trump speak for more than 2 minutes. Never in my whole life. And the reason is because when he ran the first time, people would send me videos and they were angry that he was running and they thought I should be angry. But when God showed me in a dream, I said, I will not listen to him because if I listen to him, my flesh is going to be offended because he may not be someone that I want to hear. I've never heard him talk for longer than 2 minutes because I don't want my flesh to get in the way of what I'm praying for. I don't want my flesh to get in the way of this nation being turned back over to God as a Christian nation. Your flesh will stop you from praying for a person when you see them in the flesh. But when I see that man in the spirit realm and I see all that God is doing through him, I don't care what his flesh says. It doesn't matter because God's using him. See, we have to get out of the way of that. Since 2016, period, in my life, I've not heard him talk for longer than 2 minutes. I don't listen. Because the moment my flesh gets involved, I'll pray differently. I'll start to have flesh prayers. But I pray in the spirit according to what God leads me to pray for this man. We have to come up in the spirit realm. People think that they're born again and they've never encountered Christ. I have people message me, they will add me as friends and they message me immediately to tell me what I need to change based on their denomination. And what I do is ban them from sending me messages and I let them know where they can get off. And then I ban them from sending messages. Because see, the thing about this is people don't understand that when someone is walking in the spirit, they came from the flesh and then they go up into the spirit. How in the world am I starting in the flesh, go to the spirit, then come down into works back into the flesh? I'm not like that. I'm not someone that listens to denominational teaching. I don't care what you believe. If the Holy Spirit hasn't showed me in the Bible and it's not in the Bible, I don't believe it. I am not one of those people. So you can save whatever message you're going to send me. I'm not one of those people. I have to stay the way I am because there's a country in the balance. We're going to be dedicating this country back to God on May the 17th. We all should be praying for that thing, for that day, for all of that to come to pass, because this nation needs to get back to God as a Christian nation. No matter what the carnal folks say, no matter what the flesh is talking about, all of this stuff. And I realize that, and that is my own problem, is that when I go into the comments section, my flesh gets involved. When somebody's calling me a slur or threat or whatever the case is, my flesh gets involved. So we have to desire and we have to push toward and press on towards the mark. And we need to be putting this flesh down, because if you put this flesh down and you walk in the Spirit, you're going to realize that a lot of what you think, a lot of what you believe is wrong. All right. So walk in the Spirit, enjoy